Hey, YouTubers, on this rainy Thursday afternoon, this is Chris. I'm here to try and do a Gimme 10 for 1964, focused on primarily classical, or since we're getting into the mid-60s, it's becoming more avant-garde or electronic, but so, Gimme 10 from 1964, starting with Tod Dockstader. This is a reissue on CD of this album. 3 pieces: Water Music, 2 Moons, and Quartermass. So, Quartermass and 2 Moons are pieces that he composed in 1964, and basically he did a lot of sound sampling and then took the little scraps of tape and edited them all together over hours and hours of working with them, and ended up with these 2 pieces. So he composed Quartermass, which he says the main sound sample was a balloon, and stretching the balloon and getting different pitches of air escaping it, and then scraps that were left over, he put those together and created the 2 Moons piece. So Tod Dockstader, 1964 composition. And there's the CD. This is on Starkland label. This is the majority of these are on CD, and a smattering of LP in there. So next one is Bernd Alois Zimmerman. This was a Dutch gramophone issue, and the piece here is called Monologues for 2 pianos. Last piece on here. Originally, Mr. Zimmerman had composed a piece called Dialogues, which was 2 pianos and a large orchestra, and then in '64 he revised it to just 2 piano version called Monologues. And this is pianists on this are Alphonse and Alois Kontarski. So the Dutch gramophone. This was put out in 1980. This CD issue. All right, to get some vinyl in here. This one, larger on Hiller. Not sure of the first name, but this one, the piece here is Machine Music for Piano, Percussion, and Tape, which is the middle one there on the track listing. This is on the Turnabout label. So that was composed in 1964. There's the label. So tape, piano, and percussion. 1964. And back to CDs. This is James Tenney on this Hat Hut release. Music for violin and piano. So the piece on here is the first one, called Ergodos 2 with instrumental responses. So there was a pre-recorded tape and then the musicians were given a large box of notational symbols, and those were used to coordinate their responses to the tape. So the tape was playing, and then the performers would have to respond in real time based on those notational symbols. James Tenney on Hat Hut. This was released in 1999. Says it was an edition of 3,000 CDs. And then this release here on Mainstream. It's got those 4 composers, Xenakis, Roger Reynolds, Yuji Takahashi, and Earle Brown. So for this exercise, Earle Brown is the piece that was from 1964. There's Earle Brown over here, and the piece is Corroboree. This is subtitled New Music for Pianos, and Yuji Takahashi is the pianist. So the Earle Brown piece is Corroboree for 3 pianos. And it was composed in 63 and 64, and first performed in 64 by the Kantarskis, who we saw on that Zimmerman CD. So, Mainstream New Music for Pianos. This was, I don't readily see the date of issue of that LP. But another CD. This one, composer's Morton Feldman. Early Piano Works, again on the Hat Hut label. Stefan Schleiermacher is the pianist on this, and the piece here is the last one on here, called Piano Pieces, which he has some other titles which are very similar to that, but these were from 1964, Piano Pieces. It's an 8-minute and 23-second track on here. So Stefan Schleiermacher performing Piano Pieces by Morton Feldman. And then next one, this album was released in 1964. Roy Harris. So Quintet for Piano and Strings, and Sonata for Violin and Piano. And his wife, Johanna Harris, is the pianist on both pieces. So Roy Harris. This is on Contemporary Composers Inc., CRI. So there's the label. And we have Jack Smith. So these are reissues of recordings from the early 60s. And the piece on here, 6-track Silent Shadows on Cinemaroc Island. It's described as a moment of affected rapture by Jack Smith, Tony Conrad, and John Cale, recorded September 5th, 1964. So the majority of these pieces are spoken word and instrumental backgrounds And as you heard, Tony Conrad, John Cale on here, Angus MacLeish is on another piece. This is released on Table of Elements. And there was another one, companion piece, Les Evening Gowns Damnus. This is volume 1. This one's volume 2. This has another 1964 piece. Similar, spoken word with instrumental backgrounds. And then the last two are CDs. I think this one, I may have shown this before, don't remember. Elsa Marie Parde on the Da Capo label. So this one is the last piece on there. Straight, 1964. So this is a Danish electronic composer. (1964), and then the final 1964 piece is Witold Lutoslawski, and this is a string quartet from 1964. Of course, it's not in English on the back. So last piece, Quartet Ergodos. So string quartet, 1964. This was put out on the Accord label in 1990. So there's the composer and the performers. And since Rob at Sounds Strange was the one who had initiated this series, focusing on classical compositions and composers, I thought I'm going to try to wrap this up in 1968, because then that ties into some existing Gimme 10s that I started or responded to other people that started in 1969. So I'm going to try to wrap this up, but during these next, counting this one, next 5 videos, I'm going to try to show something that Rob has influenced me with, people he's introduced me to or things that reminded me of. So this one here is one that, Elizabeth Leutens, composer. This is mostly piano pieces, called Birthday Recital. So it's got 4 pieces by Ms. Leutens, and then 3 other pieces by other composers. Has nothing to do with 1964, but it does have something to do with this series. So this is on the Pearl label. So some solo piano to wrap this up. These were recorded on July 9th, 1976. So Elizabeth Leutens, something that Rob introduced me to, and thanks to him for that. So, all right. Like I said, there should be 4 more videos in this series if I can find the pieces. And on this rainy Thursday afternoon, this video was brought to you by this beer here from Abomination Brewing Company, And this is called Anthropophagus, a double IPA at 8.6% alcohol. And for some reason, even though it's fairly strong, they put it in a pint can to make it even more potent. So thanks, everybody.